national sports gambling coming, it will be good for colleges and NCAA needs to be ready. New York, finding an NCAA rule that lacks common sense isn't particularly challenging these days. But as the Supreme Court considers a case that effectively would open the door to legalized sports gambling nationwide, the NCAA's prohibition on playing championships in Las Vegas still stands as the undisputed champion of misguided purity. The NCAA long has been officially against sports gambling, even to the point of relocating some championship events from New Jersey in 2012 when the state passed a law that allowed wagering on college events. Even while conferences like the Pac-12 and Mountain West have played their postseason basketball tournaments in Las Vegas for several years without incident, the NCAA has continued to clutch its pearls, excluding the country's most fan-friendly city from hosting NCAA tournament games and other national championships. While the NCAA's stance on Las Vegas has served little purpose other than fulfilling a sense of sanctimony, its hand may soon be forced. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments Monday on New Jersey's right to authorize sports wagering, setting the stage for the 25-year-old Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, POPSA, to potentially be overturned. Supreme Court, why ban on sports betting is close to being overturned more. When college football coaching staffs become family reunions salaries, highest-paid assistant football coaches, worth it or overpaid? If that law is struck down and Nevada no longer has exclusive rights to authorize sports betting, the NCAA likely would have to abandon one of its most controversial bylaws as more states make it legal. And once that happens, it probably wouldn't take long for Las Vegas to become an epicenter of college sports, potentially hosting college football playoff championship games and Final Fours. It's inevitable, said Jim Livingood, a former athletics director at Arizona and UNLV and current Las Vegas resident. It's not about gaming, it's about how you regulate it. I know it's self-serving, but Vegas regulates it as well as anybody. This isn't an if, it's a when. It's going to happen. The potential for a vastly different environment around gambling was a big topic in New York this week at the Learfield Intercollegiate Athletics Forum, where hundreds of college sports leaders gathered for panel discussions on an array of topics affecting their business. NCAA President Mark Emmert made an appearance here Wednesday and suggested the possibility of a carve-out if POPSA is struck down, essentially lobbying states to exclude college sports if gambling becomes legal nationwide. That would be a mistake. Sports gambling is good for college sports. It drives interest and popularity. And if it's going to be legalized nationwide, the smart and progressive leagues will find a way to capitalize on it rather than fight it and get left in the dust. If colleges and conferences aren't considering the possibility that it might become normal for fans to stop by the betting parlor on their way to the tailgate every Saturday, they don't understand their customers, many of whom already bet their games illegally or online. I'm certainly interested in what that outcome might be, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said. I haven't had time to look at the information from the arguments, and we'll await the decision. I don't know that I predict any adjustments, per se, on our side, but I also wouldn't assume there won't be some level of attention to the realities that might come from that decision if it alters it for us. We're attentive, and the decision could certainly have an impact on our culture broadly, and that affects the sporting culture. But it's difficult to sit here and effectively plan without having a decision. Said Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, we've certainly given it a lot of thought and have considered the implications. I think it depends a little bit on what the law looks like, but I'm not convinced that it's necessarily the direction the Supreme Court is going to go. Like many elements of the NCAA's amateurism model, nobody has provided a sufficient explanation for why sports gambling and college sports can't coexist in the same geographical area, especially when they already do. Tennessee, Jeremy Pruitt finalizes deal to make him Vols coach. Arkansas, SMU's Chad Morris agrees to be Razorbacks' new coach. More, MWA Coaches Call of the Year semifinals, cashier vote. The NCAA can't control where conferences hold their big events, so naturally many of them are drawn to Las Vegas because that's where the market tells them to go. Potential showcase events such as the college baseball regionals, the women's basketball Final Four or hockey's Frozen Four naturally would draw in more fans just because of the venue. And as both the NHL and NFL move franchises into Las Vegas, it should be obvious by now that the NCAA has everything to gain and little to lose by following suit. While the NCAA certainly should be proactive in addressing whether its own athletes and coaches are gambling on sports, and issue its studies with an anonymous survey every 4 years, that has little to do with where games are played. Moreover, the correlation between the physical location of a legal sports book and whether an outcome is compromised by gambling is flimsy at best. A history of NCAA point-shaving scandals from San Diego in 2011 to Northwestern in 1995 to Tulane in 1985 to Boston College in 1978 would tell you that breaches of integrity are not confined to any particular time or place. And as much as they might fight it, people at the NCAA are smart enough to know that a major change in sports gambling laws ultimately will usurp any attempt to remove events from states that make it legal to wager on their games. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Emmert said. Obviously, if you wind up with sport gambling everywhere in the country, then we're not going to stop playing championships. We'll play wherever we have to. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The NCAA, however, should be in position here to lead rather than follow. Its conferences already have proved that sports gambling can coexist with major events. The fear of gambling might give college presidents the warm fuzzies and play well at committee meetings, but it utterly lacks consistency. It takes a lot to move the NCAA toward common sense, but this time, the Supreme Court just might be in position to do it.